So in Texas, we have two types of alimony, and we don't actually call it alimony, we call it spousal support. But we have temporary spousal support, and there is long-term spousal support that doesn't really apply to the everyday person. With temporary, you normally have that with people who are in long-term marriages where we have either a stay-at-home mom or someone who hasn't worked during the long marriage. They need some training, they need some time to get set up, go to school, get some sort of career training to be able to support themselves. In those cases, attorney's fees are considered spousal support. Normally what we have is the husband or the wife who's been making all of the money during the long-term marriage continue to support the spouse throughout the divorce until we can get to a place to split the assets. Paying the mortgage, all the bills, etc. They kind of continue to do what they have been doing, sort of keeping the status quo. With the spousal support that is long-term, what Texas generally likes to do, instead of paying out monthly, what they normally like to do is split the assets differently, to where if you had start with a 50-50, what we would do is the spouse that's not making a lot of money, or if there's a really large disparity in income, the spouse with the less income would get 60% of the assets or 65% of the assets, versus the 50-50, we do a 35 split or a 40-60 split. So that helps them in the long run to try to set them up, help with the children. If you have children with disabilities, that is also a way to get a little bit more spousal support to be able to take care of those kids. So one of the main factors is disparity in income. Long-term marriage is another one where, like I said, the most common one is with stay-at-home moms or dads. We're not going to discriminate here, but it's whoever has been staying at home with the children, taking care of them. They either didn't start their career or they stopped going to school. They don't have the experience that the other spouse has. And so that is a very big influence, where we don't want to just kick people out onto the street. They want to be taken care of. So we take care of them a little bit longer. They have the time to go to school, get training, some sort of career training, get their foot in the door, be able to support themselves and the children in the longer term. Another factor is if you have children with disability and or children who are used to a different standard of living, where they go to private school, they have expensive extracurriculars, used to different activities. That does help the parent who has a primary conservatorship for the children to be able to support them or sustain the living situation that they had before the divorce. So modifying alimony after a divorce is possible, but it's very uncommon. The only time it will ever come up is if the income of the individual that's paying the spousal support goes down, where they can no longer afford it. So temporary alimony is the most common alimony in Texas. Like I said, it comes up within a few months within a divorce, where someone does need the support before we get into dividing the assets in trying to establish the person that actually doesn't have the income. So spousal support is not a very common thing in Texas versus other states. We don't typically do the permanent alimony in Texas. What we do is temporary spousal support, which is a lot easier to get up front versus trying to get the monthly payments on the back end. If you have any questions, feel free to call the Bayley Law Firm, and we're here to help.